2025 has come and gone, and as we welcome in the new year, I thought it would be fun to go over some of my favorite moments from the previous 12 months. From video games, to music, to anime, to movies. This video has everything. From things I considered good, to things I considered great, to things I considered f***ing amazing. And while I couldn't talk about everything that I enjoyed, I made sure to highlight all the things that I loved the most from last year. Also, I noticed this while I was recording, but if I say the words and I haven't even spoken about a lot in this video, it's because I couldn't speak about everything I wanted to in full length. So you're gonna hear that a lot throughout the next hour. And if you enjoyed the video, please leave a like. If you haven't subscribed yet, please subscribe. And feel free to tell me in the comments 3 things that you enjoyed the most in 2025. No big fancy intro today. Let's just hop right into it. Have you ever watched a show and had the feeling that if you give it enough time, that it could show you how good it could really be? In other words, have you let it cook? Well, that feeling is the same one I got when I first watched Gachiakuta. Born from the mind of the former assistant to the creator of Fire Force Atsushio Kubo, a story written and illustrated by Kei Urana, Gachiakuta is the story of Rudo, a hot-headed, poor and underprivileged kid who lives in the slum parts of what is basically a floating island. He also really likes garbage. Insert Gachiakuta is trash meme here. On a random day, Rudo ends up being falsely accused of the murder of his adopted father, and the punishment for such a horrific crime is an equally horrific punishment. Rudo, like any other criminal who is a danger to society, must be cast out and exiled, or in other words, he must be thrown out like any other dreg to the island society. Just like trash. Usually when it comes to manga and anime, this would probably be the moment that you would expect me to fall in love with the story, right? A big moment of betrayal is Rudo begs the people he grew up with to listen to him and not cast him out, to let him explain himself even as they shame him for a crime he didn't commit. And in that moment that the lever is pulled and he falls into the abyss, he makes a vow to take revenge on the people who wronged him and kill the person who actually killed his father, as this ominous large entity looms over the horizon. This is the moment that you expect me to fall in love with the series, right? Well, if you did expect that, I'm gonna have to disappoint. Now, if you are a Gachiakuta fan, please put down the gun, because I actually do really like Gachiakuta. But this wasn't the moment that made me like Gachiakuta. The moment I knew that this story would be something really special was episode 12, titled Something Like a Curse, and episode 13, titled An Empty Gaze. In my opinion, these 2 episodes are the moment where you either stop watching the show or reading the manga, or when you truly invest in the potential of this story, only getting better from here. I'm not saying the story does the One Piece thing of getting better at episode 1000, because if you are watching the anime prior to these 2 episodes, then you can see how good the story is. The anime adaptation is even animated by Studio Bones, and the composer Taku Iwasaki is the guy who composed the soundtrack for Gurren Lagann and Soul Eater, the anime written by the same author that inspired Kei, who they would eventually work under during the publication of Fire Force. Honestly, the origins of Gachiakuta are honestly so cool, because you can see how its influences have bled into its story, and how Kei's love for things like hip-hop, punk, and rock culture just come to life in both their art style and the way the anime brings these things to life in such an earnest way. I'm getting sidetracked, so I'll get back to what I was saying, in that episode 12 and 13 really made me like Gachiakuta, because these are the episodes that Gachiakuta goes from a revenge story to a story about redemption. I know it's a bit cliche that the character who's angry at the world ends up in a story where their actual struggle throughout the story is growing as a person and becoming human again, but there's something about these stories that I have a deep love for, man. I just like having hope in people becoming better and not letting their negative history define them. It's honestly part of the reason that I'm honestly glad at how slow the story is. I really like the moments where Rudo is just talking to the rest of the cleaners. I feel like these more more than anything are the most important parts of the story, more than how cool the fights are. And believe me when I say that the fights in this anime are extremely fucking cool. If I'm being honest, talking about the anime right now really makes me want to dedicate a video to it because there is a lot more that I really like about it. I even got sidetracked midway through me talking about when I started liking it because there are just so many parts of it that work so well together, and the origin behind its creation are just so interesting. But I can't talk about it in this video because this isn't a Gachiakuta video. What I will end this part with is that Gachiakuta is one of my favorite anime that has come out in the last couple of years. It's a slow cook, you will have to walk with the show at its own pace, but I guarantee you that it's worth it in the long run.
Let's try and be different. We can learn how to use our hands to help others, to connect. I still don't know how, but maybe we can work on it together.
You're already doing it.
Marvel has had a very rough last couple of years. A lot of the movies that have come out since the end of the Infinity Saga have been very hit or miss, and while I do have my issues with the movies that have come out, some of them have been good enough that I could look past their flaws. And even though my superhero fatigue did grow the more these movies were coming out, it wasn't until I watched Thunderbolts that I felt like, in my eyes, Marvel had finally found its footing after stumbling for so long. Part of the reason I say that is because Thunderbolts takes a bit of a different approach to the typical Marvel movie. The last couple of years, Marvel has been trying to make their stories a bit more personal instead of having them be outwardly in terms of their narrative. And before someone yells at me in the comments, I know that basically every Marvel movie since Iron Man has been character driven, but I don't think it's done it to this personal and this intimate of a level. There are no serious big bads in this movie. There isn't really an end of the world type villain in this movie, even though Void and Sentry is that. Bob isn't really a villain. He's another character in this story who is just trying to figure things out, just trying to figure life out alongside other characters like Bucky, John Walker, Alexei, and of course the actual star of the movie, Yelena.
Daddy, I'm so alone.
Florence Pugh just knows how to bring the perfect dejected, depressed, and searching for connection energy in a character that I haven't really seen in any story since maybe Tokyo Ghoul Re with Kaneki. No spoilers for that, obviously, and no spoilers for this as well, but Yelena in this movie is the perfect depiction of someone who is depressed and really wants to connect with others but doesn't know how to. One thing that really surprised me with her character, because the last time I saw her was at the end of Black Widow, and in the end credits she seemed like she was ready to take vengeance rather than being, well, this.
I don't have anything anymore. All I do is sit and look at my phone and think of all the terrible things that I've done, and then I go to work.
And I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I was genuinely surprised in a good way, because for the longest time, the thing I've wanted Marvel to do is actually focus on a character's internal struggles and not hand wave it away a few seconds later. You really feel that internal struggle that not only Yelena, but everyone else is going through in this movie. This movie made me like fucking John Walker. I didn't think that would happen, and it only made me like Bucky more as a character who is now living in this world rather than just waiting for the next fight to happen. Despite how sad the movie's main plotline is, this is a story about hope, connection, seeing the best in the people you love, and hope for a better future. I truly believe that if Marvel does do more of these more personal stories leading up to the big climactic finale of this saga, then it could rival the Infinity Saga in terms of quality. I was this close to putting Fantastic Four First Steps in this video as well, because that was also another fantastic personal story that Marvel released this year, but I liked Thunderbolts more, and I've never liked two of anything that's Marvel related in the same year, but that's how good these last two movies were. I really hope that they stick with this formula and don't go back to focusing on the more cinematic end of the world type of stories, because they really have something special with this. Yeah, I know. Why didn't you put in Alfredo 2? Where is the Clips album? Why didn't you put in JID's album? How about you suck my dick? 2025 has been an extremely strong year for music. There have been a lot of good albums this year in damn near every genre across the musical landscape. So it's probably weird that out of putting an album like Clips' Let God Sort 'Em Out, an album from a group that hadn't released music since 2009, or Freddie Gibbs' follow-up to what I consider one of the best albums of the decade, Alfredo, or even Kendrick Lamar's GNX, which even though it came out last year in November, I still consider it part of the 2025 cycle. Why on earth would I put Chance the Rapper's Starline in this video? I swear this isn't a troll. Chance the Rapper is a very important artist to me, and honestly, I don't say that lightly. I'd even say that he's one of the most important artists in my life. His mixtapes, Acid Rap, and Coloring Book were some of the albums that really helped me through my depression when I was growing up, especially Coloring Book, which is extremely funny to me because Coloring Book as an album has some of Chance's most spiritual songs on it, and I ended up growing up to be an agnostic atheist. But even though Chance has a faith he believes in and I don't, his music was one of the things that made me truly understand how strong someone's faith can be. To be able to put strength in something much greater than yourself is a beautiful thing, and he had this very childlike energy to his music. It was goofy, but never in a cringe way. It was always endearing, and it was weird, but as a weird kid, I felt connected to him through that, and I was able to fall in love with both him and his music. But then the big day happened, and then everything went to shit.
I got muscles like Superman training.
That shit is a true pack of ass.
The Big Day is arguably the most garbage album I've ever listened to, and that is saying something considering that I've listened to some pretty shitty albums. Why are they all Drake albums? But the Big Day managed to the Big Day managed to not only have some of the most garbage music I've listened to, but it managed to sour my interest in an artist to the point that I stopped listening to them completely. I'm not joking when I say that before Starline, I had not listened to anything Chance had done. To give you some perspective, The Big Day came out on July 26 of 2019. The number of days I stopped listening to Chance were exactly 2,212 days since The Big Day dropped and I stopped listening to Chance and Starline dropping, and when I started listening to Chance's music again. Granted, Chance didn't release much solo music in between The Big Day and his most recent album, but I do think it shows how much disinterest I had in actively listening to his music. That said though, Starline is so good. It's not a great album because there are a few songs on here that do suck major dick, but the songs that don't suck are so good, and this album is such a good return to form for an artist I had given up on ever making good music again. The production, the writing, the mixing and mastering. I even like Space and Time. This Disney ass Lion King song is so endearing that I can't hate it even if I want to. I do find it pretty hilarious that when Chance announced that him and his now former ex-wife were divorcing, you know, the wife that he dedicated an entire album to that made me stop listening to him, the entire collective internet was like, oh, we are so back. And I don't know what it says about us as a society that in order for us to get what we consider to be good art, that an artist has to suffer personal hardships. It's even funnier because the lyrics on this album are honestly some of the best things I've ever heard an artist say, and the introspection on this album from Chance is so touching, and it is a little heartbreaking considering my favorite line of the entire album is on the closer featuring Jasmine Sullivan, where Chance says, if your life fall apart, leave it all on a page, unrecouped, looking for love in return, what happens when a star doesn't burn, a dream deferred.
You take the acid since you concerned. They talk about it like it's some sort of super serum. Look,
that is both extremely beautiful and sad because it summarizes the entirety of Chance's career before and after The Big Day, when people thought that him choosing to not actively harm himself with substances made him no longer a good artist.
If you think my talent came from me doing acid, then go do acid and make it. I promise you that's not how it works. You know what I'm saying?
Jesus don't work like that.
Man, I'm sad now. Let's let's talk about something else. Despite what the 1 million view video on my channel might make you believe, romance is not the only genre that I like. Believe it or not, but over the last couple of years, I've slowly become more and more of a horror fan, and some of my all-time favorite movies and pieces of media are part of the horror genre. And when I say horror, I don't just mean the jump scare type of horror. There's psychological types of horrors like Midsummer, there's body type horror with movies like The Substance, and sci-fi horror with things like Alien, and gothic horror with things like Nosferatu. And yes, I'll talk about it in a moment. Berserk, which post-Millennium Falcon War was a dark fantasy horror story. It's a high fantasy, somewhat horror adjacent story now, but that's a point for another day. The main point is that I really like horror, so it shouldn't be a surprise to you when I tell you that I really liked the movie Weapons. Fun fact before I talk about this movie, but did you know that Jordan Peele, the guy who gave us Nope, Us, and Get Out, apparently lost the offer to make this movie? I can't imagine what the movie would have been like if he was directing it, but honestly, it's such a good movie that I don't really want to live in the Jordan Peele made Weapons timeline. Now, I don't want to spoil this movie for anyone who hasn't watched it, and I'm sure the people who have watched it will agree with me when I say that it's honestly a much better experience if you go into the movie blind, because this movie will subvert your expectations a lot throughout its 2-hour and 8-minute runtime. One thing I will say that I really did love about this movie that I can talk about without worrying on if I'm spoiling anything is how the movie redefines the word weapon. Well, redefine is probably a stretch. It's more accurate to say that the movie takes the different definitions one might attribute to the word and joins them together to create a story where every character in the story is in some way, big or small, using a weapon. Air quotes weapon, if I haven't flashed it on screen like 50 times. Again, I don't want to spoil this movie too much because it is better if you just go into it blind, but it is, alongside another horror movie I'm gonna mention in this video that I will spoil when I get to it, one of the best horror movies that have come out this year. A fantastic cast, freaking Josh Brolin, Julia Garner, and Benedict are in this movie. It really is just a good movie. Even outside of the horror, and even though it does drag a bit in certain parts, it being 2 hours is not a bad thing. I'm a staunch believer in movies being long because I believe that the longer a movie is, the more it will matter the longer you watch the movie. If you haven't watched it yet, go watch it, come back, and if you think it sucks, you are free to tell me in my comments that it sucks. Before we continue, I would like to give a special shout out to today's sponsor, me! I have a Patreon. So for those of you who don't know, I've had a Patreon for the last 2 years, and I don't really speak about it on this channel because I feel weird asking people for money. But a couple of months back, someone subscribed to my Patreon, and it made me realize that people actually do want to give me money because they like my videos and they want to see more of them. So I'm here to show my Patreon. If you would like to financially support me and the channel, then you can do it at the low price of $1. General support gets you access to my Discord server where it's literally just me and one other person in there. It's literally a ghost town. But if you do decide to pay me either $1 or $5 with my other tier where you can get more exclusive content, then you will get pretty much any video that I'm currently working on early. It doesn't matter if you pay me $1 or $5, you will get to see the videos early. And if you do pledge to my $5 tier, then you get exclusive videos as well as behind the scenes content and seeing how I edit and my workflow when I'm working on a video. And a special shout out to my first Patreon, on over. Usually I'm supposed to put the Patreon names at the end of the video, but I thought I would give them a special shout out today because they are my first Patreon. I love you, bro. If you would like to join my Patreon, please click the link in my description. And with that said, let's continue with the video. When it comes to stories, I think we can all agree that there's a certain point where you'll go from liking it to falling in love with the series as a whole. Some very noteworthy examples in my opinion are the Shibuya Incident arc in Jujutsu Kaisen, the Shie Hasaikai arc in My Hero Academia, and the Seabed Temple arc in Black Clover. Each of these arcs in my opinion is where the authors of these stories fully lock in and are the moments where most people tend to fall in love with these series. And the same is true for Tatsuki Fujimoto's Chainsaw Man. Now listen, if you had told me a couple of years back that one of my all-time favorite stories would be about a guy whose head turns into a chainsaw, I would have called you redacted. But this arc is what made me fall in love with this story. Now some people might disagree with me and tell me that the arc that follows this one, the International Assassins arc, is where Fujimoto fully locks in, but I'm going to have to assume that you are smoking crack. You cannot tell me after watching this movie, look me dead in my eyes, bro, and say that this wasn't the moment that you didn't fall in love with Chainsaw Man's story. One thing that I really love about this story is how, funnily enough, like the after effects of a bomb that just went off, it has this shockwave that resonates throughout the rest of the story. I won't spoil the rest of part 1, but anyone who has seen it and seen part 2 knows what I'm talking about. Reze and Denji's relationship is explored so well in this arc, and how important this relationship is for Denji's other relationships with other characters going forward into the rest of the story. And this is the arc where we see just how deeply broken this 16-year-old boy is and how no one truly sees him as a person. It's something that a lot of people tend to forget, in that Denji is still just a fucking child that has never felt the love of another person. He's always been someone that others are trying to exploit because of the fact that he has the heart of the strongest devil in the story. And what I find especially great about this arc is that Reze is basically just the female version of Denji. She's also another person who has never truly been seen as a person, just someone who can be exploited at the behest of those who are actually in power. The movie does a really great job at showing that, and instead of making Reze feel like a villain who just wants to use Denji, she comes off as a sympathetic character that by the end of the movie, despite knowing what was going to happen, I was still hoping that she could run away with Denji. And keep this in mind, this is just me talking about the character dynamics. I haven't even spoken about how fucking cool the action in this movie is. The Typhoon Devil sequence where Denji's riding beam and all the colors come together and the music is fucking hitting. Oh! I can't scream. I'm recording this at night. Before I went into the theater, I genuinely thought that I'd have a hard time deciding on if Infinity Castle or if this movie would be the anime movie I talked about in this video. But after experiencing this movie, I can confidently say that the Chainsaw Man movie is by far my favorite between the two. My girlfriend is probably gonna kill me for saying that. She really likes the Infinity Castle movie. Oh, the misery. Season 2 is now my enemy. And the crazy thing is, I don't really hate Season 2 the way the collective internet hates it. I just wish that some of the writing for certain parts of the story could have been thought about more before they decided to finalize them. Anyway, Arcane is great. So a bit of backstory. My best friend, Hi Olive, recommended Arcane to me all the way back in 2023. She had watched it all the way back when it first came out and was extremely hyped for the series. I, like a true friend, didn't watch the thing she recommended to me and kept lying to her and telling her that I would watch it eventually. Oh, why you booing me? You know you would have done it too. I put off the show for a whole year because at the time I had seen articles that said the next season was close to arriving. So I just told myself that I would just watch the show when both seasons came out. And that's exactly what I did for 2 whole days. After season 2 had released its final act, I spent my entire Thursday and Friday watching Arcane. Can you tell I was unemployed? Also, funny sidebar, but I wasn't really keeping up with the news around the show at the time, so I didn't even know that it was coming out in 3 acts every week. I had just binge watched the entire show and didn't even could, and they did a really great job. And it's part of the reason Jinx is such a wonderfully tragic character. You really want the best for her in the first season because of how shitty her and Vi's situation is. I had a whole section on Jinx in my Time Bomb video, so you can check that out for more of my feelings. Another great thing is the music of season 1 is also incredible. Like, if you put most of the songs from the season 2 soundtrack against one song from the season 1 soundtrack, I guarantee you that the season 1 song 9 times out of 10 will be the better song. And season 2 had double the songs of the first season. All these compliments I keep lobbing at the first season are just a testament to the overall quality of the first season. It honestly is such a great piece of television, and the even crazier part is that I haven't even talked about how amazing Studio 4-Tish's animation. Studio 4-Tish honestly deserves to have all the money that Riot can throw at them, because their animation is such a pivotal pillar that takes this show from being a 7 out of 10 to a 9 out of 10. They really put their blood, sweat, and tears into making this one of the most beautifully animated series that has ever been put on television. I was planning on making a video covering the strengths and weaknesses of both seasons a couple of months ago, but honestly, I think with the amount of negativity that surrounds the second season, I don't want to add any more to that. Arcane is still a labor of love from the collaboration of hundreds of artists, animators, writers, storyboarders, concept artists, musicians, sound designers, audio engineers, and editors who wanted to share their art with the world. Is the story flawless and perfect? No, but it is still a great piece of art that I'm happy I got the chance to watch. Thank you, Olive. On the 23rd of February 1883, an author by the name of Carlo Collodi published a children's novel by the name The Story of a Puppet, but you probably know it by its more popular name, The Adventures of Pinocchio. For a lot of people, the story of Pinocchio is about a wooden marionette who, when he lies, has his nose grow longer and who wishes to become a real human being. That is the cute description of the story. The actual story is much darker. It's a story about abuse, manipulation, being tricked, the consequences of people's incompetence, and so much more. I'm not joking when I say that until doing research for this portion of the video here, I didn't know how comically dark the actual story was. Like, dude, Pinocchio kills Jiminy Cricket with a hammer because Jiminy Cricket was pissing him off with a lecture. Pinocchio is an actual garbage person in the original story. Disney really worked overtime to make him look like a character you would want to empathize with. There's also this... Yeah, I'm probably gonna have to cover this in case it triggers someone, but just know that the image behind me is something that has to do with a rope and a very tall tree, and Pinocchio, after being tricked, is the one involved with said rope and said tree. And you, viewer, are probably wondering what any of this has to do with Dark Souls. Oh shit, I have to explain Dark Souls. Dark Souls is an action RPG that released on... You know what? Let's just stop with the backstory and get to the point already. This is Dark Souls, and this is Hidetaka Miyazaki. Dark Souls is a very, very hard game. Now, what would you get if you took the very, very hard game and the other hard game that Miyazaki made that allows you to parry, and Pinocchio's story... Pinocchio. Why the fuck did I pronounce it? And Pinocchio's story, and fused them together? I'll give you 10 seconds to answer. Alright, time's up. If your answer was 2023's critically acclaimed Lies of P, correct, you get a gold star. I don't have one, but just imagine I just gave you one. So, Lies of P. I'm gonna be up in front when I say that I am not the biggest fan of Souls games. I have played Dark Souls 3, I enjoyed it, but I wouldn't say it's a masterpiece. I do love Sekiro, and I do think out of all the games Miyazaki has made, Sekiro is his most innovative, interesting, and enjoyable game out of everything he and From Software have made. That being said though, Lies of P, in my opinion, is arguably a better game than the entirety of the Soulsborne franchise combined. I say arguably because I do in fact want people to yell at me in my comments for my ultra-based take because it is the correct take. I first played Lies of P around last year of December, and initially, just like Elden Ring and Dark Souls 3 when I first played those, I dropped the game. I didn't pick it back up until a couple of months later around June, and this time when I did decide to play it proper, I started to notice myself getting a lot more interested in the game. I wasn't all the way there yet, but bit by bit, I was getting interested in this game more than I would have liked to admit back then. I was still trying to convince myself that it was just another boring Souls-like, even though the game had the thing that made me like Sekiro, the cool parry mechanic. I shit you not, I got all the way to the end of the game, and when Geppetto asked me for my heart, I gave it to him and felt weird about my decision. Something didn't feel right about this exact moment, and when I saw the ending of the game, I just felt a pit of hopelessness in my stomach. Did I get the bad ending of the story? Did I miss something? Although those questions stayed in the back of my mind as I went to sleep after turning off my computer, and I was still disinterested in the game. So, like any normal person who plays a game and doesn't really like it, I played it again, because that's what normal people do, right? We don't just pick up a new game and move on with our lives. No, we hyperfixate instead of doing something that might give us a more enjoyable time. I played the game again on New Game Plus this time, and like a filthy casual, I googled if I had gotten the bad ending, and I did in fact get the bad ending. So on my second playthrough, I did everything I could to get the good ending. And there I was, again, standing in front of Geppetto as he asked for my heart once again, and this time I said,
I'm disappointed in you. You were a good boy. If you refuse, then I'll have to retrieve it myself. My son.
the fight with the nameless puppet is when Lies of P truly clicked for me, and it clicked for me because this boss feels like the culmination of not only the story, its themes, and its characters, but also the culmination of the blood, sweat, and tears Miyazaki and FromSoft put in when they were responsible for what we now refer to as the Souls-like genre. Hard games with enriching stories that are layered through small interactions you have with the characters of these games, as well as the item descriptions, the designs of not only the world, but every outfit that you as P wears, and of course the boss fights. It took me getting my ass handed to me by the nameless puppet over 60 times to fully appreciate the bosses that these games have, and that isn't to say that the bosses were all terrible. I think Melania, Mesmer, Genichiro, Ishin, Slave Knight Gale, and Pontiff Sullivan are amazing bosses, but they don't really capture the essence of what makes a hard boss. Nameless Puppet is that, and after fighting him and losing every single time, when I finally did beat him, that's the moment I realized how foolish I was to not appreciate the game on my first playthrough. Think about this for a second. I had to fight the hardest boss of the game on New Game Plus because I missed him the first time, and it took me over 60 attempts to understand how stupid I was for not appreciating the game on my first playthrough. And when I did beat him, I played the game again, and I was actually excited to play it again. All the lore I missed the first time, all the character interactions I was half paying attention to, all the songs from the vinyl that I didn't give a fuck to play in Hotel Crot the first time, everything about this game just came together on my third playthrough, and I thought to myself that the game can't get any better than this. And then the DLC came out.
It matters not. You belong to me now.
Look, I would love to spend more time glazing the absolute fuck out of this game, but this video isn't about Lies of P. But just know that the DLC has made Lies of P my favorite Souls-like game in both the genre and in general. I like this game more than I like Sekiro, and it is arguably one of the greatest games of all time. And that is why I think Lies of P is the GOAT. When it comes to anime and manga, I have a pretty simple rule I've set for myself. If I really, and I can't stress this enough, really like the series, and or if I've read the manga through, let's just say, totally not shady website, then I will make it a mission to buy the manga. It's been the case with series like Komi Can't Communicate, Chainsaw Man, Tokyo Ghoul, Chojin X, Black Clover, and of course Berserk. But when it comes to series that have genuinely made me want to buy the manga the moment I read the first chapter, none of the series I named have come close to Dandadan. Instead of recapping Dandadan, I want to talk about my favorite aspect of the series. I'm not recapping because if you are a fan of Dandadan, you've probably seen most of the more popular videos around the series. And if you haven't, just watch this video by Kizutsukami or Scamboli's video. So my favorite thing about Dandadan is connection. I bet you thought I was going to talk about the romance, but no, it's not what I enjoy the most about the story. Even though I think the romance is fantastic, it was never really the main selling point to me for the story. A very wild statement, I'm sure, when Dandadan is a series where the main characters fight the Loch Ness Monster and penis aliens and a fucking kaiju. But in the midst of all that insane chaos and one of the more beautifully written love stories I've ever seen between Momo and Okurun, the one thing I've always really loved about Dandadan is the fact that it's a story about connection, and connection in all its many forms, whether if it's connection formed through making friends, a connection that forms from falling in love, the connection that we have with family and the lengths we are willing to go for those connections, and the lengths we will go to connect with others is my favorite aspect of the story. And I know I'm not the only person who feels this way in regards to this aspect of the story, because one of the highest rated episodes of season 1 of the anime was the episode where we got Acrobatic Silky's backstory, an episode where we see the lengths that a mother is willing to go for her daughter. Not only does Science Saru bring this part of the manga to life in such a gorgeous animated sequence accompanied by a beautiful Kensuke Ushio soundtrack, but you can really feel the heavy emotions in this moment. I'm not lying when I say that this was probably the moment that made me want to buy the manga. It's just beautiful. Yes, I am stealing this sequence for my own video because I'm too lazy to edit. Shut the fuck up. Alright, now that I've gotten that part out of the way, Dandadan is fucking awesome! Listen, I know I should have put it in the next part of the video, but the reason I put it here is solely because I just had to wait for the second season. Regardless of that though, the second season of Dandadan was just as good as the first season. I really cannot understand what they are feeding the animators at Science Saru to make such a high quality show like Dandadan, but please keep feeding these animators. Keep throwing money at this series because Dandadan is genuinely one of, if not the best adaptations of a manga that has been given to the anime community. I put this adaptation up there with Attack on Titan, Frieren, Dungeon Meshi, ReZero, One Punch Man. Season 1. It's just an absolutely fantastic series and I really can't wait for season 3. When I talked about weapons, I mentioned the fact that for the longest time, I wasn't really the biggest fan of the horror genre. The same was honestly true for musical movies as well. Odd, I know, that the guy who ended up growing into being a musician wouldn't like musicals. And what I find really funny is that both these genres ended up joining to make what is my favorite movie of the year. But we'll get there. So for now, let's talk about the musical that made me like musicals. K-pop Demon Hunters. K-pop Demon Hunters is a Sony animated movie that came out earlier this year on Netflix. I hadn't really heard of this movie until a colleague of mine at work recommended I watch this movie on a Wednesday workday, and so, like a regular person who works a normal 9 to 5, I got home and proceeded to go to sleep. Nah, I'm playing. I watched the movie instead of going to sleep, and boy,
Why couldn't you love me? I do. All of me.
is this movie great. Now, I could give you the entire rundown and tell you how Sony, with this movie as well as the Spider-Verse movies, is redefining the animation industry, and how, despite Hollywood insisting that people aren't interested in any new stories, that people do in fact want new stories, because the success of K-pop Demon Hunters was massive. The biggest. The largest. But this video isn't my fucking college dissertation, and I think talking about my feelings on how this movie made me like musicals instead would be better. Also, the K-pop genre as a whole, because up until I watched this movie, I hadn't really gotten the appeal of K-pop music at all, even with my girlfriend doing her best to get me into the genre. I still didn't really get it. I always felt like I was missing something. Spoiler alert! Because of this movie, I finally get it and found what I was missing. I also like K-pop now. There's this feeling I had when I first watched this movie that I couldn't really describe up until I actually thought about what this movie was actually about. If you've watched this movie, then I don't really need to recap the entire story, but the simplest description of the movie is, what if you took Demon Slayer and made it into a K-pop musical? This movie deals with a lot of different topics, but its overall main message is, don't hide who you truly are from others. Accept who you are, flaws and all, and if you do that, you'll never be ashamed of who you are, and the connections you have with others will only grow stronger. The final song of the movie is literally about the beauty of self-acceptance and how the relationship between Huntrix growing stronger through not only Rumi accepting who she is, but Zoe and Mira accepting her, finally solves the issue of closing the Honmu. What reinforces this main message and what made me finally see the appeal of musicals was the music in this movie. My reasoning behind that is that the music in this movie understands what concision is. There's a YouTuber who goes by the name Level 1 Rock who made a video covering the Kendrick and Drake beef. Very weird that I'm mentioning this, I know. And in it, he perfectly goes over it and what the actual meaning of the word is, but to summarize his point, concision is just saying or doing less for more impact. The power in musicals comes from the fact that songs are the way in which characters can get their message across without dragging out the runtime of the story to tell it more effectively. And K-pop Demon Hunters understood the assignment when it came to this aspect of the movie, and I think the reason it was able to excel in getting its main message across through each individual song is because the K-pop genre doesn't really restrict itself in terms of its sound. It grabs from multiple different genres and fuses them together to create these different but cohesive sonic landscapes. All these songs take from genres like hip-hop, R&B, pop, and rock to make something that is unique and allows the writers to really focus on the feelings the characters are going through. What it sounds like is the obvious example of this. It starts as this slow R&B pop ballad, has this big epic rock-like build towards this chorus and in the bridge, and has this tense moment with these hip-hop drum patterns blending into the song. Just seeing all these different blends of music coming together to create a song about hope and self-love finally gave me that light bulb moment where I finally understood the actual reason why people like musicals. You can't really tell a story like K-pop Demon Hunters without it being a musical. The same goes for movies like Wicked, La La Land, and any Disney musical. The music in these movies is important because it gives you a chance to see who these characters are while moving the story in a more smooth way and making the characters feel like fully fleshed out individuals. And this is just me talking about the music of this movie. The story is great. The animation is so vibrant and expressive. The The movie is so colorful too. The romance is cinema. Netflix, if you give me another couple that can't be together, I will kill myself. This was a really fantastic movie. And while I do wish it was longer, I do feel like Mira and Zoe should have gotten their own individual arcs. I still think Rumi's journey of self-acceptance was masterfully done and handled extremely well. So, in closing, love yourself and don't be ashamed of who you are. You bitch ass nigga. Blonde Blazer is objectively the best romance in the game. I will not elaborate. Alright, now that all the Invisible fans are gone, let's talk about Dispatch. Now, despite the fact that this game came out at the time that I wrote this section of the video 4 weeks ago, I still think it's worth talking about because Dispatch is one of my favorite games of the year. Granted, I didn't play that many big games this past year, and all the games that I did play were all indie games that no one has spoken about in the past 2 years. Go play American Arcadia though. It's a very good game. Also, Solar Ash, go give that studio money so that they can make more cool games like this, please. In collaboration with Critical Role Ad Hoc Studio, a gaming studio that formed in 2018 by some of the former devs that worked for TellTale, comes Dispatch. Dispatch is a point-and-click choice-based game that follows the story of Robert Robertson III. To kind of simply summarize Robert's story, I'm going to use 9 words. What if Iron Man didn't have his arc reactor? I joke, obviously, but this is somewhat the foundation of the story. Robert, on a mission to find his dad's killer, gets the suit that he and his family have used for generations to be the superhero Mecha Man blown up. Robert pretty much loses his ability to be a superhero, and after a press briefing proceeds to get his ass beat by the Skittle Squad. In the middle of said ass beating, he is saved by the superhero Blonde Blazer. I'm skipping ahead a few scenes, but essentially the reason that Robert gets saved from having his ass blasted by the Skittle Squad is because Blonde Blazer wants him to work for SDN, or Superhero Dispatch Network, and that's pretty much the plot of the remainder of the game. You, as Robert, work as a dispatcher for a merry band of misfits called the Z Team. Yes, it's a fun family type of story, but it's one of the good ones, I promise. Like with most TellTale adjacent games that are like this, the story is about connection, forming relationships, and the importance of those relationships and what they do for all the characters. Much like a game that came out earlier this year, Lost Records. Although that game is a lot more different in terms of its writing and gameplay, still a pretty good game. I recommend it. Dispatch is also a dating sim masquerading as a TellTale game. A dating sim that kind of incentivizes one romance over the other, which is very frustrating if you're a Blonde Blazer fan like me, because the game really pushes you to go for Invisigal, which, don't get me wrong, okay? Play this game twice. Over 15 hours of my life have been spent on this game, and on my first playthrough, I romanced Vizzy, and I still really like her. But if the game wanted to make the relationships feel as balanced out between your two romance options, why does Vizzy have most of the screen time? How am I supposed to commit HR violations when I can't get it on with my boss? Romance aside, I'm honestly extremely happy we have games like this possibly returning. I think it's fantastic that in the current gaming climate, people still want to play what are essentially interactive movies, and they still can be both extremely well written on top of being massively successful and extremely popular with a general audience. Do I have my problems with the game? Of course. I don't think it's a perfect game. I do think that there was definitely still a lot left on the cutting room floor, and that some of the relationships weren't better explored, and like, just for example, if you cut Sona instead of Coop, it's very clear that Malevola is very upset by this, but it doesn't feel like she stays angry at you long enough to make a difference. By episode 6, she's busy flirting with Robert and punching his dick. Like, you'd think that someone like that would carry somewhat of a negative view if they just lost a friend because of an action you committed, but the game moves on too quickly from this. I think Vizzy's character arc kinda stumbles a lot because the writing doesn't really give her enough time to fully make her a character you actively want to help get better. And before you Invisigal haters think this is just me hating her because I like Blonde Blazer, I am not. I just think that the story wants you to look at Vizzy as a character that is worth not giving up on, despite how hard-headed and prickly she comes off to Robert. She does soften up, and I do like that, but I wish we got less, "Oh Robert, I want to fuck you, Robert. Please plant your seed inside me," and more scenes like the one where you go watch the movies with her. Still though, Dispatch is a highlight of my year and is a fantastic game. Fantastic music, fantastic voice acting, solid story, and all around a good time. Also, Laura Bailey is in this game. That's my dog. If you like Laura Bailey, then that should be good enough reason to play this game. Also, please give us Markiplier in season 2. You gave us Jack and Charlie, you can give us Markiplier. Also, I forgot to mention this, I really like the hacking minigame section. I wish we got more of that. I would just like a hacking minigame section mode. That would be so fucking fun. 2025 has been a really good year for superhero-based media. Marvel, like I mentioned in my Thunderball section, has had a very rough last couple of years since the conclusion of the Infinity Saga. DC, I don't want to talk about DC. Despite DC constantly stumbling to jumpstart the cinematic DCU with Zack Snyder's many failed attempts with his movies, James Gunn managed to save this sinking ship. Thunderbolts, Fantastic Four First Steps, and Superman have somewhat rekindled my interest in the superhero genre with stories that are more personal and more character driven. My Hero Academia is also in its last season, and I'll probably make a video about it one day, but seeing Midoriya's story finally reach its conclusion in such an epic way has made me grow more fonder of the story as a whole. I say all that because even though 2025 has been such a really good year for this genre of storytelling, none of these stories really revived my interest in the genre as a whole until I watched To Be Hero X. To Be Hero X, despite how it looks, is not in fact Arcane Season 3, despite it looking like it was animated by Studio Fortiche. No, To Be Hero X is a donghua. Donghua just translates to animated in China. It's not an anime from Japan, it's from China. I don't have a Chinese joke on hand, just pretend I said something funny here, in Chinese. Being chill. To give you a non-boring summary of To Be Hero X, it is an anthology series that follows the story of 10 heroes, each on their own arcs and journeys of self-exploration, and the overall encompassing theme of the entire story is what makes someone a true hero. I won't spoil any individual arcs because I would much rather you, the viewer, sit down and watch all 25 episodes of this show. Ling Ling, Queen, and Isol are my favorite arcs of the show, and they are the best arcs of the show, and I will fight anyone who disagrees with me. I haven't even mentioned the animation, the music, the fights. The show has such a fantastic way of switching things up on the fly that keep it interesting. The show can go from 3D to 2D to whatever all these other animation styles are, and I say this not just figuratively, but literally at the snap of a finger. Now I want to make it clear, okay? I did watch the Chainsaw Man movie. It was fucking awesome. And the fight between Reze and the Typhoon Devil and Denji is the coolest fight I've watched all year. So when I say that Queen vs. Boa is on the same level of cinema as that fight, I mean it. And my partner took me to watch the Demon Slayer movie, and no fight there was as cool as this fight either. Don't tell my girlfriend that. All this absolute cinema is accompanied by a soundtrack from a little known composer. I don't know if you guys know him, he's not famous. He goes by the name Hiroyuki Sawano. I do want to give credit to the other composers on here though, because despite Sawano's name being the one plastered on the soundtrack, he, alongside Masaki Umasa, Kota Yamamoto, Daiki, Ryuichi Takada, and Hideyuki Fukasawa, do an amazing job at creating some of the most memorable songs you'll ever listen to in any TV series. Queen of the Stars is my favorite song from the soundtrack. It has just this ethereal, calm, and somber energy that perfectly captures in my heart who Queen is as a character, and the build-up to the climactic final chorus is chef's kiss. Before I close out this section, I just want to talk about the power system for a second. This show also has one of the coolest power systems that I've ever seen before. The trust value system at face value can seem very boring considering other magic systems and other stories like stands or Nen or mana in any fantasy series, but the idea that power in this world comes from how people perceive heroes in this world plays a huge factor in what makes it so interesting, because it adds a lot more complexity to these characters as individuals and not just characters in a story the author wants to get from point A to point B. Trust isn't just an indicator of popularity, it's an essential element to how these characters function because it allows us to see them beyond the superficial nature of their powers. I think this is part of the reason I like Queen's character so much out of everyone in the cast. She feels like the most human. I mean, they're all human, but you get what I mean. She is probably the second strongest character in the entire show, but the strength she achieved because of her popularity doesn't really amount to much when she stands up next to someone like X, who has the ability to warp reality at the literal snap of a finger. So her arc feels like we can connect better to it because we've been at this point where even though we try our best, we've achieved recognition and praise for our hard work, we still fail. It doesn't matter how strong you get or how much you know, there's always someone who will be stronger, smarter, and more popular. But what matters most of all is connecting with people who care about your well-being and not about other people's expectations of you. Outside of this being one of the coolest shows of the year, it's just an overall beautiful story about what people who embody what true heroism is. Now give me season 2 before you start complaining. Yes, I know this album came out in 2023, but this album is probably one of, if not the top 5 best albums I've listened to in this entire decade, and I only discovered it this year, so shut up. Janelle Monáe is an artist I've always had a very strong impression of. Yoga obviously was the song that anyone who knows about her probably discovered her from, and it wasn't until the late 2010s that I actually took time to listen to her entire discography. She's always had this uniqueness that you can't really find in most mainstream music. Part of the reason I say that is because no one really has approached the concepts that Janelle Monáe does in her albums to as interesting of a degree as she approaches them. Yes, you could say that a lot of artists have done the whole techno-synth futuristic aesthetic that Janelle had throughout the entirety of the 2010s, and some artists probably did it to a much more grandiose level, but with Janelle, I can't really explain what it is that made her stick out so much for me.
I think when I saw David Bowie,
you saw him?
I did. I traveled back into the 1970s and I saw him do Ziggy Stardust and the Spiders from Mars, and it was incredible.
You traveled back.
I will admit that I wasn't really the biggest fan of her first album or second, and even though I have been coming around to Dirty Computer a lot more as the years have gone by, Janelle didn't really grab me music, but I always knew in the back of my mind that Janelle was closer to giving me an album that I could call a masterpiece from her. I just needed to let her cook. Dirty Computer, in my opinion, showed me the potential for what Janelle Monáe could do if you gave her enough time to work on a project, but it was still missing something. And I think the reason I don't enjoy that album quite as much is because it feels very closed in on its initial concept. It's a concept album, so of course it's going to try and follow that concept and try to tackle it in as interesting of a way as it can, but the concept also holds Janelle back from truly giving her best performances. The Age of Pleasure doesn't really have that. More specifically, when I say that, I mean a concept. It doesn't have anything grounding it in trying trying to be this larger-than-life project. Even though, in a weird way, and what I'm saying is a bit contradictory, it does have a concept. Just walk with me for a second, okay? I'm going somewhere with this. The entire concept of the Age of Pleasure is about Janelle finally feeling free to express her wants, her desires, to express her desire for love and sex, but also allowing us to be free in that feeling and breaking down the barrier of how we perceive intimacy and loving ourselves, as well as love in relationships. It's such a melting pot of so many things that relate to the human experience, and the backdrop for this concept is some of the most refreshing music I've heard in an album ever.
You gotta do that little.
Oh, that's the funk.
Here we go back. Yeah. On my lips, say the lover, 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 lover.
Oh my. I honestly can't name a single instance throughout this entire album where I didn't like what I was hearing. I loved every single song on this entire album from start to finish. And my only issue with this album is that it's only 32 minutes. Do you know how fucking mad I was when I first listened to this album and didn't hear anything after a dry run? Also, fun fact, this album was also the first time I discovered Doechii. And the thing that's even weirder for me is that Janelle put on such a strong performance on every song on this album that any artists that do feature on a specific song just blend into the background. She has such an overwhelming presence on this album that when I listen to it, I can't see or hear anyone but her. She radiates this energy that says, this is who I am. I am free in who I am. I am free in my desires. I like to fuck. Also, I forgot to mention that, but this album, my god, is it horny. But not in an exploitative way, it's horny in the liberation way. It tells you it's okay to voice your wants, your desires, say them loud and proud, and don't be ashamed of them.
Everything. The age of pleasure is coming.
Whatever horrors you may find in these dark spaces, have heart and see them through. There are no premature endings. There are no wrong decisions. There are only fresh perspectives and new beginnings. This is a love story. Slay the Princess is a game about perspective. Created by husband and wife duo Tony Howard Arias and Abby Howard under their game studio Black Tabby Games, this indie point-and-click visual novel, yes, visual novel, is a game that over the last year has managed to insert itself into my all-time favorite games of all time. I'm talking top 10, maybe even top 3. The main plot of Slay the Princess is, well, it's in the fucking title. You, as the main character, are tasked with slaying the princess.
If you don't, it will be the end of the world.
The game has multiple branching paths in which, depending on whether or not you do manage to kill the princess, can take you on paths that allow you to explore different aspects of your relationship with her. Despite how violent almost all interactions with the princess can get, these 5 words that you see when you boot up the game aren't lying to you. The game is a love story. It's a game about growth, the troubles that plague 2 people in a relationship, and of course, perspective. Perspective for both you, the player, and of course, the princess to take away. And the game does not hold back or sugarcoat the perspectives it wants you to give the princess. It shows the good side and the extremely ugly side of a relationship. I don't want to give away too much because all the different parts this game explores are so interesting that breaking any of them down individually would require their own 1 hour long video essay. So for the sake of time and not dragging this video to 2 hours, I'll tell you about one of my favorite new parts because I've been replaying the game again, and it's the main footage you're probably seeing on the screen. The beast. In order to get the beast, you have to go into the basement with the knife that the narrator tells you to pick up to use to kill the princess. You examine her chains, she tells you that the key is probably upstairs, and you try to go back upstairs so you can find the key. Oh, what was that? Can't go back?
But the door at the top of the stairs slams shut. You hear the click of a lock sliding into place.
Can't go back upstairs? Someone locked the door? That's weird. Okay. Better go downstairs and tell the princess. You do that, and then the princess proceeds to chew off her wrist. What the fuck? The blade gets dropped into the basement, and the narrator urges you to do the thing you were supposed to do and slay the princess.
Without hesitation, bring the blade down and plunge it into the princess's back.
arc. If you choose to follow that path, then you stab the princess in the back and a fight breaks out. She feels betrayed that you attacked her and proceeds to lash out at you like an animal that's cornered and trapped in a cage. The wounds you leave on each other eventually take their toll on you, and if you choose to give up and not go down fighting, that's when you're taken to the beast path of the game. I'm skipping ahead to save time, but the main point of this route, if you manage to see it through to the end and not die prematurely, is to show you the perspective of nature versus nurture. Is this version of the princess and every other version of the princess inherently bound to cause the end of the world if you leave the cabin and if you don't kill them? Or do they cause the end of the world because of the circumstances that shape them? The perspectives that shape them. I could have spoken about the tower / apotheosis for this section, but the beast version of the princess, in my opinion, is the best version to show this because she literally becomes beast-like after you form an antagonistic relationship with her. She doesn't think rationally up until you, the player, decide to go against your own belief that she is just an animal controlled by her need to kill and consume. If you reach out to her in a moment of weakness, she shows you that she isn't an animal. She's a person who wants to connect with you, but because of her beastly nature, didn't know the proper way to do it. Even in the part where she eats you, it's still a form of her trying to reach out to you. Yeah, the princess vores you just to connect with you. Someone probably got extremely turned on and is probably gonna buy the game because of that last sentence. What I just described is only one part of the game, and I didn't even fully delve into a lot of the different mechanics, like how choices affect what new voice you might get, that do influence the path you will go, that either lead you to the best outcome or the worst. You can tell that the creators really thought about how to make this game feel intricate while making it easy for people to explore different parts of the game without ever feeling like they are retreading the same steps. My only complaint with this game is that there hasn't been multiple DLCs that add in new princess variants and parts to follow. I would 100% throw all my money if this game got new DLCs every 2 or 3 years that gave you new princess variants and allowed you to get new perspectives. It's such a good game. I never thought I would like visual novels, but if more of them were as good as Slay the Princess, I'd play them all the time. Go play this game. Can I be honest with you for a second? I honestly do not think that I am a very good YouTuber. On top of not having a consistent schedule, I am not a very good editor, writer, and I struggle with imposter syndrome a lot. Whenever people compliment my videos or tell me, oh, the production of my videos is so good, I honestly feel like I'm still doing something wrong. Like I'm still not saying the right thing or editing the video the right way or using the right music to make the video sound as good as I can make it sound. I'm always struggling to make videos as good as I want them to be, and when I can't, I often feel like Takehiko Inoue in this clip. There's a certain perfection that I feel like I'll never be able to reach with my videos, and it keeps me up at night because I want to make videos that are perfect, videos that people can return to several times over and take new meanings from or find something they didn't hear the first time. And that feeling has honestly gotten stronger because of the friends I made this year on this platform. There's a high possibility you guys are already subscribed to them as well because of the amazing videos they have put on this platform, and each of them have inspired me to make better content. First, there's the Beyond Media guys, Josh and Josiah. Out of most YouTubers I know who are on the specific side of the platform, they have been putting out consistently great content every month over the last 12 months. On top of deeply insightful videos with each new topic they talk about, they have a way of making their videos feel like these interesting observations on not only media, but also people. They cover a wide range of topics across almost every video and still have found a way to keep each video extremely engaging as well as entertaining. Also, Josh is such a bro. Next are EB.MP4, Shinkyo, and Mellow Mikal. A lot of you probably know EB from this video, you know Shin from his Wonder Egg Priority video, and you've probably encountered Mellow through his Saga of Tanya the Evil video. Believe me when I say that without about these guys that I honestly don't know if I'd be trying to make all my videos as high quality as possible. I don't know if the perfect YouTube video exists, but I do know that perfect creators exist, and these guys, in my opinion, are perfect creators. There's something about the way they each script their videos, to the way they edit and analyze a piece of media that I wish I could steal and do in my own videos, if only to half the quality of the way they do it. When it comes to consistently dropping quality videos, I don't think I've seen creators on this platform do it to this high of a standard. EB has this way of cultivating a unique vibe to his videos. I don't know if he studied psychology or not, but it feels like he understands what makes people people, and is also able to verbalize that in his writing and editing. He's one of the creators whose style is so unique that I don't think anyone can replicate. Mello has a way of mixing his love of fantasy with serious discussions about the quality of a show and its characters, and Shin has a way of breaking down a show in a way that I wish I could if I wasn't so fucking lazy. It's like he has his finger on the pulse with the things he talks about, and I couldn't be more happy to get to call such a creative person a close friend. And these guys are only a small fraction of the number of creators I've met this year and gotten to call friends. I'm showing some of them on the screen right now, but each of these guys are such amazing creators, and if I didn't meet them, I don't know if I would still be creating content. They actively push me to make videos, and their content motivates me to make mine better. And because of these guys, my channel has grown to a much larger size than I thought it could. So let's talk about my channel for a second. When I started this channel, I was very nervous. The reason for that nervousness is because I didn't really think I had much to offer in terms of being a creator. A lot of the people that I watched before I started all felt like they had something. I don't know if it was charisma or the way they sounded or used to make me feel, but there was something that I always felt like they had that I wouldn't have. So being a creator was going to inevitably feel very pointless to me. But somewhere along the way, something changed for me, and I started realizing that what actually mattered wasn't the creators themselves, but how they used their voices to educate people on the things that they were talking about. That's when I understood that I did in fact have something to offer people as a creator on this platform, and that thing was my perspective. I said perspective again. Slay the princess. Slay the... Now, I will be the first to admit that I am not the smartest person in the room. I'm not the funniest person in the room, and I am not usually the most entertaining person in the room. But despite that, my voice and my perspective still matters. So much so that over the last 3 years since I first made my channel, I've managed to amass a somewhat large audience of people who are willing to listen to the things I have to say because my perspective is worth someone's time and attention. I've honestly been so lucky just to have the chance to be able to just get to talk about the things I love and hate and have people who are willing to listen to what I have to say. And while it does seem extremely cheesy to say that, it's true. I'm so grateful for everyone who has helped this channel grow to its current size and help it in its continued growth, regardless of if you are an old subscriber or a new one, or someone who is considering subscribing but still hasn't decided because they are waiting to see if I'm worth their time. From the bottom of my heart, thank you. Seeing this channel's growth over the last 2 years has honestly helped me realize how important it is for me to continue to share who I am and my perspective, and I'm so excited to see it grow more in the future. And now, a special segment covering all the things I couldn't talk about in this video without making it 30 minutes longer.
Niggas really weird, bro. Stay out the way.
As your last act in this world, my mom made a simple wish. For me to find a family and live the rest of my days happily. So now, despite how mediocre I am, and how gifted these sisters are, this is how we became a family.
Made up in your mind that I ain't good enough. Keeping up the lies was in. 静香ちゃん、君はものすごい 笑えないのはやっぱりダメだっぴから。笑える。私笑えるから。
Why won't they tell us what we're doing here?
It's important work, obviously. You have earned a 5-minute music dance experience. Damaraka. Excellent choice.
You humans are dangerous and troublesome things. Therefore, you will be removed. Yet if you still think this thing is worthy of life, I will allow you the opportunity to prove it.
This too is your legacy.
In a way, it's yours too.
Mais ma meilleure ennemie, c'est toi. Fuis-moi.
お前、やっぱ惹かれちゃうやろ。
お前のこと大好きやね。お前を殺したない。
There are legends of people born with the gift of making music so true it can pierce the veil between life and death, conjuring spirits from the past and the future. This gift can bring healing to their communities, but it also attracts evil.
I have a question for you. It's gonna be important for this section of the video, so just stick with me, okay? My question to you is, when does art die? In order to define this question, we need to understand what art is as a whole, and art is defined according to Merriam-Webster as the conscious use of skill and creative imagination, especially in the production and aesthetic of objects. Now, this is somewhat of a more broader definition of art, but the easiest way to define art, in my opinion, is a concept that is brought into existence through the imagination, skill, and soul of an individual. Take note of the word I just used there, soul, because it's going to be important for later. And by later, I mean now. The question that I asked in the beginning has been on my mind for the better half of a year now, and the reason it's been on my mind is because I believe that when art truly dies is when it loses its soul. So, Sinners. Sinners is a movie that came out earlier this year and came out from writer and director Ryan Coogler, who you know most prominently as the director of the Black Panther movies. Now, there is a high likelihood that if you've watched Sinners, that you've also watched the Morbid Zeus video on Sinners. Breaking it down, and you've probably seen Archer Green's video covering how it defines the genre that it's in by mixing a lot of different other genres to create a whole new experience. Any point I might make might sound like it's coming straight from them, so you can just go watch their videos. So instead of trying to reiterate points that they have spoken about at length, I'm going to tell you how I feel about the movie instead, and tell you what I personally think the actual message of this movie is, because it's one of my favorite movies of all time, and I've spent way too long thinking about it. Now, the concept of a soul is very interesting to me as an agnostic atheist, because it's something that I do believe in. Defining what a soul is very difficult because it's not something that we can touch or see with the naked eye. It's spiritual and immaterial. Cambridge Dictionary defines the soul as the spiritual part of a person that is not physical and experiences deep feelings and emotions, and the part of a person that exists in some form after their body dies. To me, the soul and art go hand in hand, because the art that is born from someone who takes the time to create something to express themselves is a reflection of their soul. Sinners' main story beat from the start of the second act of the movie, once Remick is introduced, is for Remick to find some way in order to connect with others, but more importantly, his ancestors. The way he believes he can achieve that is by stealing Sammy's musical ability, because he believes that it will allow him to look into the past to connect with his loved ones. What Remick sees when he hears Sammy's performance is someone who, as Annie described at the start of the movie, a person born with the ability to pierce pierce through the veil. But one thing she doesn't describe that is also powerful aside from music's inherent ability to connect us through time is the power in the music that comes from a person's inherent soul. In other words, what Remick wants is Sammy's soul, because his soul can create the art that will allow him to benefit off of.
Sammy, you're the one I came for. I sensed you. I want to see my people again. I'm trapped here, but your gifts can bring them to me.
On the surface, this doesn't seem as bad as I make it sound. But if you include the fact that Remick is a vampire that forces immediate assimilation through him turning other people into vampires, then you can see that him taking Sammy's power isn't only wrong, but it's fucking evil. Assimilation inherently, and in a few rare select situations, is not a bad thing. But it tends to require you to stop thinking about your own personal interests in order to help the collective group as a whole. You still get the choice to choose that assimilation as an individual. It's an individual choice that you make as a person. Forced assimilation removes that choice you could make as an individual because it removes your ability to be an individual, and that is the inherent problem with Remick's vampirism. A hive mind doesn't have the ability for individual thought or choice, and if you can't choose, then the art you make will come out soulless. The two big music performances are the biggest examples I can use to describe my point perfectly. Compare the scenes in the movie where both Remick and Sammy sing. Sammy's performance doesn't require forced assimilation because his music is genuine. It allows him to pierce through the veil and connect with his future and past and all the cultures that soul music grew from and what it grows into later. It's a combined effort from people who actively make a choice out of something they love to nurture it and let it grow, and because of that, all the emotions expressed from the people in the juke joint during Sammy's performance are real. Sammy's soul lives on in his art and it goes well into the future. It's free. Unlike Remick's soul, which, to quote Annie, is trapped with all this hate. Remick's performance, even though he tries to mirror the collective power of Sammy's performance, is still ultimately hollow. It lacks true fellowship. Remick is using all these people, stripping them of their choice to participate willingly in his performance of Rocky Road to Dublin, and making them sing it with him and cheer for him so he can feel even an ounce of the same feeling that he got when he listened to Sammy's performance. The performance sounds good, yes, but it doesn't feel good when you peel back the layers from it. It doesn't have anything that's genuine about it. It's sick, twisted, and it lacks a soul. And that, in my opinion, is when art dies, when it loses its soul. See, I have a theory that even if Remick did manage to turn Sammy into a vampire, then he still wouldn't have gotten what he wanted, which was to be able to connect with his history, because Remick would have removed Sammy's individuality and thus removed his soul, which would result in Sammy's art, his music, losing its power. Art is something that has power. It connects and brings us together and creates something that can't be described, much like the soul with words. The feelings we get from art are a result of us looking at the soul of a person and deriving meaning from it. Any emotion that art elicits out of you is a result of the soul behind it. And that is why this movie is one of my favorite things that came out in the year of 2025. There truly is so much more I could say about this movie, but this video is already... oh my fucking god, long enough already. So I'll just end this video by saying this. Create art. Create it with love, create it with passion, and more importantly, create it with your soul.
I'll live like it's the last time.
And that is the video. My last video of 2025 and my first video of 2026. Yeah. I know it's been a while since my last video. Firstly, I'm so sorry. I know I upload like a fucking snail and I'll try to do better in this new year. The reason I haven't posted since June, I think, is because I've just been so busy with school, with my personal life, with work, and like my computer has been fucking dying on me this whole year. I bought a new, I'm building a new PC, which is fucking awesome. Yay. It's after like so long with this current one, I just feel so great because this video has taken so long to fucking finish because this PC has just been dying and crashing on me every single time I've just been editing this video for the last like 3 months. But that out of the way, I'm so excited for, you know, working on new videos this year. I'm so excited to give you guys better content, to just make overall better videos and just have a good time. I feel like last year, part of the reason I also couldn't upload, or like I was struggling to upload, was I was finding it very difficult to motivate myself, because how do you motivate yourself to make better videos when the algorithm is just so fucking garbage? It's difficult to make videos sometimes, because I feel like I'm always in an uphill battle against the YouTube algorithm, and it's just fucking draining on my mental health, because there's all this shit everywhere. The world is on fire, AI is fucking everywhere, and it's exhausting. It's exhausting, but I'm trying to get out of my own head about it. I'm trying to be more positive. I'm trying to enjoy things a lot more, instead of just trying to see everything as black and white and everything as being fucking terrible, because things aren't terrible. There's a lot of good shit happening at the moment, and I'm excited for it. I'm gonna play more video games with my new PC. I'm going to watch a shit ton more anime. There's a lot of good anime coming out like this year. A lot of good stuff that I love. Dr. Stone, Frieren, you know, all the shows that are like ending, or like all the, you know, big sequels, and all the new shit that hasn't come out, like Witch Had a Tell yet. That shit is gonna be peak. But yeah, that's for another day. That's to talk about for another day. For now, I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope, you know, you had a good time. Please tell me what you enjoyed from last year. 3 things: 1 thing you consider good, 1 thing you consider great, 1 thing you consider amazing. And with that said, I'll see you in the next video. Later.